Hello.
Hello.
Heyo.
There he is. Uncle Dane, welcome to the live stream. You must be
Hi.
warned we are live, as in
Yes,
there are
I was
people
just watching.
listening. Really?
I was
Okay.
well. I was listening. Yeah.
How much of it did you catch?
I from the beginning.
Really?
Wow.
Oh, you're one of the many lurkers.
Yeah. I whenever I'm because I was editing and whenever I edit, I usually throw up a podcast, and you just happen to be on. So
Damn, that's
Cool, yeah.
perfect. Okay, man,
yeah.
we've got you in here now. What's this pressing
Yeah.
question?
I had a question. It's probably easier to say than type. And well, anyway, I was listening and uh, Lazy Purple. You mentioned that you had like a burnout, and you've always described yourself as lazy, which I always thought was kind of interesting because as far as like the last year, or I don't even know how long you've been making videos since your
8 months?
comeback.
Roughly.
Yeah, there you go. You've been what I would describe as the opposite of lazy. You seem to have like a work ethic that is unmatched.
Thank you. Thank you.
You always cite, well, I mean, yeah, it is a compliment because not a whole, I mean, I think that there are definitely people who have like work ethics that are out of this world. But I mean, like to go from describing yourself as lazy during what I'm assuming was your high school days to being so efficient that you can actually describe, you can actually like you've memorized the hours that you put into each video. So I feel like that has to have come about by some sort of I don't know methodology like
Yeah, I mean,
switch.
this is almost worth a video in itself, much in the future, because I would like to help people that were in a really similar situation to me. I mean, I touched on it really briefly, and I think that I even got a question mark from someone who didn't get what I was saying. But let me be frank. I had a period where I was super depressed and felt super meaningless, and like just giving effort was without reward. And it's such a long journey out of that pit. You gotta, and you needed so many different sources of wisdom and people in your life who kind of like see that there's more to you than what you're giving. Like I said, I shouted out BoJack Horseman, but there's so many pieces of media that you see, and you get like one piece of insight where you're like, wow, that makes me think about life a little bit differently. And you got to hang on to those. And sorry, you asked about my work ethic, not about how I got out of being depressed, but
Well, I mean that's a
um,
part of it, but I mean, yeah, I'm wondering if you had like a revelation or some sort of. I mean, it obviously didn't happen overnight, but I mean, like you obviously changed your ways in a very significant, like almost going from one extreme to the other, and I that you don't really see that very often. So I was
yeah,
just curious about
I'm
if
proud
there
of.
was a thing that happened.
I'm not perfect thus far. I definitely have weeks where I like only work 20 hours and something like that. But
Hmm.
I'm pretty happy with myself that I was able to make the switch, and it gives me hope for everyone else. And that's why I said I want to
Yeah,
make a video. I want to help other people get out of their funk and realize that we all have a lot of potential if that's what we want. Some people they're like, life is totally pointless. I'm fine with that. Bye bye. I'm gonna play video games forever. And I'm like, sure. I mean, as long as you like totally acknowledge that. But for me, there was like an underlying feeling of like, I wish I was doing something. So, um,
Can
you
I?
can. There's definitely like some books out there, and I'm not saying I was like reading libraries to get out of this, but I remember there was a book about like the science of habit that kind of enlightened me about like what's going on in my head that makes me do things I don't want to, and I mean it's fascinating the whole science of getting yourself to do what you want to do but can't seem to get yourself to do.
yeah, yeah.
And there's so much to learn, and I think that the absolute number one thing, and to prevent this from being like a 10-minute video script, is every time anything goes wrong, and I mean like anything, and I thankfully I got this from playing so many competitive video games. This is a habit I formed. Anytime anything goes wrong, you forgive yourself, but you always think about something you could have done different. One thing you could have done differently. So it's like if I had a day where I didn't work at all, right? I don't like beat myself up anymore at the end of the day. I think like, well, there was somewhere in this day that like I had either or an emotional response, or like my curiosity was really piqued by like a certain subject, or what led me down this path, like what Reddit post did I see, like where did I get to this point where I'm disappointed with how the day went. And you just always, if once a day once a day you can figure out one way to do something differently the next day. In a year or so, you are like much more on top of things than you were before.
It's interesting. And you said you said one of the books you read was The Science of Habit.
Yeah,
That's
the power of
about,
habit, I think it's called.
or yeah, something like that. But it's that I'm sure touches on like why people uh, are bad at having habits, like why people are like they want to have a habit, but they just can't get themselves to do it, or what kind of. I'm interested in this book, I'm guessing.
Oh yeah, it's super fascinating. It's less of a how to be a superhuman with habits, and more like showing the power of habits and how we don't understand how much of a habitual creatures we are. And there's, I mean, man, there's like the whole dopamine thing in your head, and like when dopamine activates, it will make you feel
Yeah.
better about your bad habits, because you realize I'm not a piece of garbage. It's just that I've formed habits, and those are changeable, as painful as it can be, and and slow as it can be sometimes. I'm trying to think of like an example that would kind of pique your interest, because I feel like that's what you're going for. Let's see.
I mean, do you have the book to hand? Is that something that you?
No, it's not in my hand. It was an audiobook from Audible.
Is it something that you refer back to occasionally?
I do have notes. Actually, that's an excellent idea. I have notes on every book that I read while I was in that state. So
Really, that's kind of
yeah, I think it's because Audible has a function where you can bookmark while you're listening. So if I'm driving, I can just like press the bookmark button and then go back and see what points really spoke out to me. Because like I said, if you feel like there's nothing you can do, the one thing you can do is hold on to things that speak out to you and like understand why. Let's see. Opening up the document.
We're getting like an audio walkthrough of you opening up.
All right. Well, first note I have is if you focus on one keystone habit, you can reprogram other routines that are linked to that habit. So that's a kind of a common tip that I've seen elsewhere, is like if you can force yourself to change something really small about your day, it can have a butterfly effect. Like if you say, all right, I'm never going to wake up without making up the bed. I'm never going to take off my shoes without putting them back in the exact place they're supposed to go. This is really easy, right? I mean, for some, but it will build a foundation of what it feels like and means to like have habit that's positive. I mean, it's always more complicated than a little quip of like, this will fix your life. But let's see.
So how do you? I mean, I kind of want to follow on from that and ask you how you keep from slipping back.
Well, I do, and that's the thing. In fact, this week I was really bad about it. I almost got nothing done this week leading up to this podcast, and I mean that just happens. And I've already identified like where in the sequence I kind of slipped up and lost my footing. And it was kind of it kind of came out of feeling too relieved when I uploaded the soldier video, because like I had a feeling of I had still a work ethic, because I had been building work ethic habits so strongly up until like releasing that video, because it had to get out by a certain time in my eyes. And then as soon as I like let myself slip and like I uploaded a video, I'll do whatever, it's like it all falls apart. So it's so important to have self-awareness about what causes you to fall out of good habits.
Well, that's really interesting. I'm glad that you clarified that.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Thanks for asking. I hope I didn't get too like weird and fix your life kind of thing.
No. I mean, change has to come from somewhere. So
Yeah,
I was
it's
interested
slow.
in where you found it. Because and it's embarrassing because Agro has my my channel videos up right now. As you can see, I haven't uploaded in 2 months. So I
Well,
would
you're
consider
working on a
myself
super project,
to be
right?
going. Yeah, but it's definitely one of those things where I could have been working on it 2 months ago and I would have had it out. So it's I feel like I'm going through a period of time where it's like difficult for me to have a set like idea of what I should be doing each day, and by the time the day's over, it's like, well, I didn't get anything done.
Yeah,
And it's hard
structure is super
for
helpful.
yeah. I need structure. I think I need order, and I don't really have that. And I feel like it's because I've had structures that I've had to like adhere to my entire life, and then kind of transitioning into a self-employment kind of situation is kind of coming. It's awesome and I love it, but
Yeah,
I
but
feel
it's
like
no
I need
different.
to change my mindset in order to get used to
Right.
not having anybody telling me what to do.
So the both of you are now like full-time YouTubers. You make money by producing content on the internet.
Yeah,
That's
So,
right.
one of the few I think in the TF2 community, but it's growing. I've noticed there, like Banny didn't start making TF2 his full time job until a couple of years ago, or a few years ago, and
mm,
now LazyPurple, and I
Yeah,
don't
I'm
know.
honestly surprised by how well the How It Feels videos does. It shows that there's still a lot of lingering and active interest in TF2 as a topic.
I think there's a lot of new interest. Like it is one of those games that if the first time you install Steam, if you're not specifically looking for a one particular game, or even if you have installed Steam to look for that one game, it's like a natural progression. And I think a
Yeah.
lot of there's always a constant surge of new people into the game, and those the first thing these people are going to do is get their asses handed to them in a random ass pub, and then the second thing they'll do is go and look on YouTube and try and find out how to play.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
And I think that's where you'll find that there's like the people who are leaving comments and saying thanks are basically those who are new to the game. Or I mean, do you feel that your fan base is forever churning? Or
Forever what?
churning? Sorry, there's a thing in the
Yeah.
mobile phone industry where people just get burnt out really quickly and then get new people in. So
Yeah, like a revolving door
yeah,
of different type. Yeah, different generations of people coming in and watching the videos. Definitely.
so like, can you track that sort of stuff? Is that something that's of interest to you? Do you care where your fan bases are coming from, or
It's hard to track it like on
Yeah, I
a
don't think there's an
data
analog.
scale, but you'll like get messages from people. Like I have my Discord DMs open, and people who join my server for the first time, they're like, "I just found your channel." It's like, oh yeah,
yeah,
there are people who just started playing TF2 like last week, and they're
Hmm.
now discovering the entire like plethora of content that's been on YouTube for the last 10 years now. So
mm,
yeah, it's one of those things. I think that everybody's so surprised that TF2 is still gaining players and like kind of sustaining traction. But a lot of people don't understand that it's a free game. It holds over very well. Like I'm sure that Lazy Purple's entire dissertation on why it's a timeless masterpiece can tell
Yeah.
you more. But I mean, like it's not something that loses its spark over time. It's something that will
Not at all.
always be there. So I think people are usually just surprised because there are so many naysayers out there, or people who need an excuse to stop playing, I guess. And so they call a time of death on a game so that they don't feel like they're the only person who's decided to leave. I think that
Yeah,
it's
yeah. Sometimes
very
it's a
heavily
defense
that.
mechanism.
Yeah, that's what I feel.
would
Like
you
the
agree?
game's dead to me, so it's dead
It's
completely
part of the
to
spiel.
everyone.
I feel like I'm like almost overwhelming urge to interview you while you're here, Dane. But like, I mean, I asked this
Yes,
of
I jumped in
no, no,
after
no,
the.
it's fine. But like, I asked this of Lazy Purple, and it brought about a reaction that I wasn't really expecting. Or like, the whole question of would you ever leave, or like how long does Team Fortress 2 have you? And then the response was kind of what I expected. I mean, like the not necessarily apathy towards TF2, but more like a controlled realization that it cannot possibly be the be all and end all of the content that he releases. Sorry if I'm over paraphrasing you. I know you're still in the room, Lazy Purple. But
That's pretty fair.
um, do you feel the same way? Because your channel is 100% TF2, Uncledane. I mean, you are
Yeah,
you are. I mean, you're not your friendly neighborhood engineer and other things. Like,
yeah, and this is something that I've actually thought about because everybody's like, "Oh, you should make videos with other games," but there's a very small portion of people who request that, and I realize that you can't give people something to subscribe to, and then be like, oh, I'm changing what you subscribed for,
Yeah.
and not have people like, and not have like a general amount of people kind of upset. And I think that, and I did watch Soundsmith's video on this, and it was very well made and very well thought out. But I think that he missed a pretty important point, and that's just that, like, whenever you establish like a theme, it's very hard to break out of that theme without like giving people a kind of a what is the word, like a like making that pill easier to swallow, I guess, over time. Like you can't just change on a dime. Be like, I am deciding to be, I'm going to be a variety channel now. Like that's not what they subscribed for. So
Yeah.
But if I ever did make other types of videos, then I would just make a different channel.
Oh, really?
And I would say, like, if you want, yeah, I think that that's always the best course of action. I know that people might think that it's like counterproductive or something, but if you at least just tell people like that you have that channel, then they'll go and subscribe to it.
That's
It's the best of both worlds,
interesting.
because the people who only want to see your TF2 content just won't go and subscribe to that second channel. And the people who do, they will. And so you'll basically make people happy either way. That's the way I feel about it, at least.
Yeah, I mean, it's a scary leap to make, though, making a new channel, at least for me.
Yeah, for sure, because you might feel like people aren't going to be seeing the content that you're making. And it almost feels like starting over. But if you don't plan on making the switch entirely, like if you plan on doing TF2 content and variety content, then I don't think that it's that big of a deal. Like a good example is somebody that I actually have talked to a lot, not lately, but his name's Max Mofo. He's got a couple mil subscribers. He makes like a random assortment of videos, but all of those videos are spread across 5 different channels.
What?
And each channel has like 1 million subs. So I'd say that it's been shown to work, and in the end, it actually could benefit you in a pretty significant way, because he'll make, general kind of videos on his main channel, like stuff that he's known for. But then he has like a very huge hobby around Pokemon and collecting. So he made separate channels for each of those. And then he's like, oh, if you want to go check out this kind of content, then subscribe there. And it basically gives people a choice. It's like, do you want to see content from everybody, like from everything that I'm making, or do you want to see just the kind of content you're subscribed for here? And people will make that choice. And it's not like forcing these videos to pop up in their subscription feed if they don't want it to be.
Yeah.
And I feel like if you have people subscribe to all of those channels, then they'll see all the videos regardless. It's like, it doesn't really matter where it's coming from. It'll show up in your subscriber. Yeah, I feel like that's the best, like, it's the best medium. Like,
my only
in between.
substantial concern is algorithm woes. And I always hear this thing that the more a certain channel puts on the air, the more it is in the algorithm. And then I've heard a counterpoint where YouTube will also suppress how many subscribers get shown your next video if your previous video was not clicked on by subscribers. There's so many weird metrics that I don't entirely understand. It's all very scary, and I guess that would be a main reason that I don't want to. For sure. And the thing about the algorithm is that it's changing literally all the time. Yeah. So you can never like go all in on an algorithm based decision. You can only kind of have it in the background, I feel like. Almost day to day. It's like, is this good for the algorithm now? Because if yes, then sure. But you shouldn't base your entire channel, your entire like theme, or your entire existence on the algorithm, because it could be completely different next year. It happens all the time. Mm-hmm. So I feel like dedicating yourself to like what the algorithm is up to at this very moment in the long run is not a great idea for long-term success.
I mean, even little things like when you choose, like what time of the day or what day you choose to release a video on, those have got to be considerations that you.
That actually used to matter, and now it doesn't. I find
Wait,
that pretty.
what? Really?
Yeah,
How
time of day used to matter, but now it doesn't. So it's kind of strange.
Can you explain that, or just link me to a
So-
video that explains?
Well, okay, this isn't like 100% confirmed, but I used to notice that you upload like Tuesday afternoon, most people like that's when your video will get the most views.
Huh.
But you upload like some other time or in the middle of the night or something like that, that's when it gets the least amount of views and no one will see it. And I think that had most to do with the fact that back then the recommended thing wasn't as streamlined, and also the homepage didn't show you videos from your subscription feed that you missed. So if you uploaded at a specific time, like when people weren't awake or when people generally weren't looking at their subscription feed, then by the time people got around to it, your video would be pushed down further on the list, and then no one would see it.
Yeah, I mean
So-
that's the time that I come from in cryostasis, where I understood it that way.
Yeah, exactly. No, that used to be like, I don't know, 5-6 years ago. That was the thing. But nowadays, it literally doesn't matter what time you upload your video, because if your subscribers don't see it when you upload it, then eventually it will be recommended to them
Interesting.
over time.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, and I will say that if you upload it in the middle of the night, you probably won't get a whole lot of views immediately, but over time that view count will stagnate. But if you upload it like during like a hotspot time, like after school or something for most people, then it'll get a bunch of views early on, but over time it doesn't affect it. It's just kind of like when you want the bulk of views to happen or not.
Fascinating
It
stuff.
doesn't matter. Yeah, it's just weird things like that that change all the time because of how YouTube improves or ruins their website in various ways.
Okay, I could listen to this for hours. But we probably
this became
shouldn't.
the YouTuber podcast. Jeez.
Yeah.
I know it's surprisingly difficult to separate like the novelty, or for me certainly the novelty of like a YouTube style existence, because I have a job and I do things in my daytime that have nothing whatsoever.
Curse
to do
you!
with- I know, right?
Just quit.
Yeah, that's
Easy.
That's a choice that I'm gonna have to make at some stage, I'm sure, but not right now. But it's such a surreal place to be. I feel like I've gone from being in the comfortable chair to sitting on the uncomfortable stool, and listening to the big guys talk about their lives. Do you ever like feel like you've made it?
No. I feel like I've made it in the specific pool that I've decided to play in, but I feel like there's still a big pond out there. It could
That's an
definitely expand
interesting
to.
differentiation to make. That I initially was gonna say, yeah, I made it. I make TF2 videos, but you're right. In the larger scale of things, there is another definition of made it.
Yeah, I feel like I had. Yeah, it depends on where you feel like you've made it. Because for some people, making it means getting 1,000 subs.
Mhm.
You know, but for me, I feel like made it has always been constantly moving forward, like on my horizon.
Yeah.
Because I definitely would say that I've gotten to a point that I wanted to be at 2 years ago, but now I'm at a point where I'm like, okay, well now I want to be at a different point 2 years from now. So
Yeah.
let's see if I can get there.
You
And you know, constantly moving forward.
You came into this Uncledane saying, "Hey, look, what happened?" Well, not necessarily what happened, but how did you, LazyPurple, come out of this sort of funk that you were in? Shout out to funk, by the way. And now you also mentioned the fact that you've only got you haven't pushed out content and it's been kind of weighing you down.
Yeah.
Are you feeling? Was this super personal question to you? Are you?
Yeah.
Feeling
sure.
like you're in a funk.
It was very
moment?
selfish. I wanted to know for my own benefit.
Everyone should always feel on a path of self-improvement, and the sooner you realize that, the better. It's an eternal journey to be better than you were yesterday.
Thanks, Goo.
Yeah. I feel like I have this this constant feeling of being comfortable, too comfortable almost,
Mm-hmm.
and I hate it. And I'm aware of it, and that's the worst part. I wish I was not aware of it and I would just be comfortable, but I hate not having any like urgency under me.